Howdy, folks. Today, we're going to go over how to go from 15th place at Champlain to 56th in less than 12 hours. But no, in all seriousness, we're going to go over what we did right, what we did very wrong, bad decisions, good decisions, very blessed, very fortunate, and kind of had a few tough breaks. We'll just jump right into it. You're at Lake Champlain up in upstate New York. Beautiful country. It's just gorgeous up there. You got mountains everywhere. The water's real clear, real clean. You've got the upper end of the lake around Plattsburgh where you have a huge population of big smallmouth, a very good population of largemouth, and then you can run 70 miles down the lake to Ticonderoga where the water's dirtier, you fish shallower, you fish targets, which is, you would think would be right up my wheelhouse, and that's where I ended up fishing the tournament, really, in a way. Went down there the first day of practice, and come to find out the water is like, a couple of the guys were saying like 3 feet low, 3.5 foot low, which, I mean, fishing real shallow stuff, that could be a mile, honestly. But there's another way to look at it. The way I looked at it when I got down there is, okay, if they live down here, it's not that huge of an area. If the water's dropped 3 feet, they've got to be somewhere. And started pecking around during practice, and there's a few certain bays down there that I started throwing a chatterbait in, way off the bank. I mean, out in the middle of these bays in like 7 to 5 foot of water, where there was some scattered milfoil and other types of grass. I'm not really sure what they were, but about every 20 minutes you would get a bite. I caught a 4, some 3.5. Probably had 17 pounds in 4 or 5 hours, which is about the only amount of time you're going to get to fish down there, is about that time. So I thought, well, you can catch 16 to 18 pounds down here if you get lucky and get a pretty decent bite. And going into the tournament, that having 15 pounds a day on Champlain is going to have you in 50th, and having 16.5 pounds a day, you'll probably make the cut. That's just how tight the weights are. That's most of the fish are the same size. You got to get those 3 1/4s to 3 3/4 instead of the 3 evens and the 2 3/4. And then get lucky and put a 4 to 5 pounder in there to really jump up the leaderboard. So the next 2 days of practice I spent on the upper end of the lake, and again, I do this all the time. You can hear it in my other videos. I get myself too spread out trying to do too much stuff at one time, and I think that comes with a little bit on this situation of not having a whole lot of experience here, instead of just bunkering down into one area where I thought was going to produce the best weight for the tournament. On the last day of practice, near the end of the day, I think I had 2 or 3 hours left to practice. It was like 4 o'clock in the evening. I went over to the Vermont side and started graphing around on my hummingbirds, and I saw a few fish, jumped up on the trolling motor, dropped down on them, caught a 4.5. I saw 3 fish, caught a 4.5, caught a 3.5, and caught a 2 pounder. I caught every fish that I saw, and I thought, well, I could stay up here and gamble and just graph around all day and try and find some fish, because I really don't have an area I think I can go catch some weight, or I can run back down to Ty and grind around and try and catch 17 pounds. So first one of the tournament comes. I've done made the decision I'm going to Ticonderoga. We run all the way down there. It takes me an hour and 10 minutes. We roll up. I start firing my chatterbait around. 30 minutes goes by, hadn't had a bite. Hour goes by, hadn't had a bite. Hour and a half goes by, haven't had a bite. Might have caught a pike or two, but that's really about it. 2 hours goes by, and we've made this hour and 10 minute run, and we haven't had a bite. So I'm kind of kicking myself, saying how stupid I am, stuff like that, and still throwing a chatterbait. After about 2 hours, I make 2 back-to-back casts and catch like a 2 1/4 and a 2.5. I catch 2 1/4 largemouth, stand back up, throw out there, catch a 2.5 pound smallmouth. Just not really what you're looking for down there. I mean, that's not what you ride an hour for. I run back to the area I started in to throwing the chatterbait, and I look in the back of the bay, and there's a mat back there that's probably the size of a football field. And I know it's shallow because I've basically been everywhere down here. and I get to trolling. You can't idle back there. You have to troll. I'm in like a foot of water, foot and a half, probably a foot and a half. And I'm trolling back there, and I get to the edge of the mat where I can make a cast on it, and I throw to the right-hand point, catch a 3-pounder first cast, get it in live well, throw to the left-hand side of the point, catch like a 3.5, 360 something. So I've got 4 now, 2 pretty decent ones. I think I go 3 or 4 more casts. I catch another like a 2-pounder. And within the next hour, you'll be able to see it in the footage. I hardly move my boat like 50 yards and catch what I end up weighing in, which was, I think, 18-10. Really fished. I mean, I fished it pretty hard, but I mean, it seemed to be, I mean, I wouldn't go 5 or 10 minutes without some kind of bite. So I knew there was a good population of fish there. And the main thing I noticed is there was like 6 or 7 brim beds all around the back side of this mat. So I guess those fish were just pulling up in there. And that mat was the only really place they could go because it was so shallow to have some cover from the sun, you know, to get in the shade. So, you know, I was feeling pretty good. Caught like a 5.5, coiled 3 or 4 times. At 1 o'clock, I didn't have to leave till 2. At 1 o'clock, I decided to leave and run back up the lake just to make sure I get back. I have to go get gas, stuff like that. That took me an extra 10 or 15 minutes, but I've already played that in. I run all the way up back to where, or I'm running, you know, I've got a lot of time to think on this hour run, and I'm like, I'm going to go straight to where I caught them 3 smallmouth in practice because there was a couple isolated boulders there. I said, if I get a bite there, maybe it'll coil. Because, I mean, I've got a 299 in the live well. I can coil with a 3.5. I mean, ounces, I mean, will jump you to 5 or 6 places on this place. So I run all the way up there. I've got like 30 minutes to fish. I graph around where I caught them, nothing. I made another pass and moved over to the other side of the point and made 1 pass. And I see these 3 big boulders that are like right beside each other. And I see 2 marks on top of them. I stand up, get all my stuff, my drop shot rig, drop down. I'm sitting there. I feel him get it, and when I set the hook, it just sits there. It's like I'm stuck to the bottom. And I make like 2 or 3 winds on it, and I got the fish. I can feel his head shake. I mean, I automatically know it's a big one. I feel his head shake, and all of a sudden the line just basically goes limp. And you can see in the video, I'm trying to catch up with him as fast as I can. And then what them big ones do is most of the time when you hit them, they'll sit there for just a second, and then they're coming straight up out of 30 foot. I mean, they're like rockets, just straight up at you. And when I tried to catch up with him, and when he got up to the boat, he kind of jumped sideways and just, I mean, he threw the hook. I never was able to catch up with him and get the slack out. So that cost me probably 2 pounds. I would have probably had over 20, you know, is what it is. Roll on to day 2. I'm sitting in 15th, and you know, I gotta go back. I mean, I left the fish biting. I know there's another 15 or 16 pounds in that mat, and I'm gonna hit some more of my chatterbait stuff too and try and get that bite back going. So, you know, I've got to go back down there. I'll make my way back down there, 1 hour and 10 minute run, and I roll up and I'm running back to this. I didn't want to get off Plaid because I couldn't really, it would take me longer to idle back there than anything. So I run like halfway back there, and when I look down when I'm running into this bay, I can tell that the grass is topped out way out in the bay. So when I sit down, I go to put my trolling motor down, and my trolling motor almost hits the bottom. And I look around, and my mat has gone from probably a football field and a half to about 30 yards wide and about 50 yards long. It looked awful. It just didn't look right. It looked completely different than it did 12 hours ago. And I get to looking up on the bank, and the water has fell about 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches, and my mat's it's all compressed. There's no activity going on. There's a few brim left on the brim beds. There was one little corner of the mat that had a little bit of water left on it, and I ended up, it was probably a 20 by 20, and I caught 3 out of it, 3-pounder and some keepers. So I leave that, abandon that, go run around, caught a couple keepers on a chatterbait, and I leave to run up there at I was going to have an hour left to fish, back up for the smallmouth. And I go run up there, and I go in there to get gas, and, you know, I get a little bit of bad luck. There's a couple of boats in front of me. It takes me 30 minutes to get gas, and there's no way I could get back and go fishing some more without getting some gas. I could get back to Plattsburgh, but there's no way I could get back and fish. So, you know, you kind of get in you're in a bad deal. You either leave and get back to Plattsburgh and you can't fish, or wait the 30 minutes. So I ended up waiting. I run all the way back up over to the Vermont side, fish around a little bit. I've got like 35 minutes to fish. Fish around a little bit. I don't get any bite. I don't even see any fish. I sit back down and I graph over a point I haven't fished. It's close to where I lost the big one, probably within 200 yards. I see another isolated rock. I see one fish on it. I get up there. I drop down on it. As soon as it hits the bottom, he gets it. It's like a 480 smallmouth. I catch it getting live. It culls out a 12-incher. So I go from having 9 pounds to whatever I ended up weighing in, 12 or something. Wasn't really the day you wanted. Had to go in after that, obviously. But weighing in the 12 pounds, you drop from 15th to 56th, drop out of the cut, lose a bunch of points. It's just all a bad deal, really. But, I mean, it's all a game of decisions. I probably could have stayed up the second day and just poked around on some smallmouth and caught at least 16 pounds, made the cut, and then been able to survive another day. But, you live and you learn. Really not sure why the water fell out of that place, unless the wind had just blown a bunch of water down there after the third day of practice. And that night of the last day of practice, it blew really hard, and we had some storms. It could have blown the water up into that bay, and those fish run up there into that mat, and then when the water fell out, obviously they pulled back out. But I tried to pull out and fish some of that deeper stuff where I got bites in practice, and it just wouldn't pan out. I kind of got my wheels spinning, and I wanted to get back up there. Looking back on it, I wish I would have just pulled the trolling motor up and came back when I saw the water had dropped, but we didn't. But that's just how it goes. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. You got to make the right decisions at the right time. All right, guys, going to give you a rundown of the baits that I used at Champlain. I said I was running the Ticonderoga both days. I was catching some on a chatterbait, and then the fish that I weighed in on the tournament, I caught on a frog. And I'm in some, cheese mats, topped out grass and stuff. But first I'm going to dive into the chatterbait. It was a 1/2 ounce, evergreen jackhammer. Chartreuse and white was the color, silver blade. The trailer I was using was I like to use the Zoom split tail trailer. It's basically made for a spinnerbait, but I like it on a chatterbait. It gives it a real unique action, a real erratic action in the water. And when you're not dealing with cold temperatures, like a lot of times with a chatterbait where you want just a little tight wobble, this is a good trailer to go to when the fish are active and you're fishing, a lot hotter water just on into the summer months. The rod I throw my chatterbait on is a 7-foot medium heavy, moderate fast Invoker Pro from Arc. It's our composite blend rod. It's got a real good bend to it. It's got the mushy feeling when one eats it, so you're not ripping it out of his mouth. But with that, I call it a mushy feeling. It's a more sensitive rod than a lot of composite rods on the market today. So it lets you know what your bait's doing and kind of keeps you in tune to what's going on. BB1 Pro Speed Spool is the reel I was using. It's a 6:4 to 1 gear ratio. I like to drop it down a little bit when I'm throwing a reaction bait. I think I can control it better and it doesn't wear on me near as bad. 20-pound sniper fluorocarbon. It's just a real basic setup. You just got to keep it in your hand and wind it around and try and get around a group of fish, which I was able to do in practice and wasn't able to do in the tournament. But moving on to my frog setup, I was throwing a couple different types of frogs. I was throwing different types of colors. I would swap it up a good bit. Right now I've got tied on a Zoom hollow body frog. I'm not sure the name of the color, but it's a shad type imitator. I would throw a white colored one, and then I would throw a brown greenish colored, like a more natural frog color. Throw a black one a little bit, but for some reason they seem to miss it. They would just blow up on it. They wouldn't really eat it. But when you got a little bit brighter color, they seem to really eat it a little bit better. I get real picky when I get into my frog setup in those really heavy mats, because I feel like you got to have the right equipment to get them out. And here at Art, we have an Invoker Pro that's a 7.4. It's a mag heavy. It's a light rod in your hand, so it won't wear you out throughout the day. But it's got plenty of backbone all the way out to the tip, where, in years past, if you're mat fishing, like, on the big Tennessee River lakes where you've got those big fields of hydrilla topped out and stuff, you want to make as far cast as you can. You're throwing with a flipping stick, and it's wearing you out by 8 or 9, 10 o'clock. This isn't going to happen with that rod, and you still get the same backbone with it, but with the lightness. I really like it about that. Lose Pro TI You know, same reel I always use most of the time. 60-pound FX2 braid. I like the heavier braid in the mats for sure, so you can kind of winch on them. You don't want your braid breaking when you hook a really big one out there on a long cast. I mean, that's about as simple as it gets. Again, you just got to get around the fish down there. And the first day I did, and the second day we had some misfortunes, and that's kind of what it boiled down to. The smallmouth, the one big smallmouth I caught the second day, and when I would go smallmouth fishing, and I use this at the St. Lawrence as well. It's the same rod, same setup, everything. It's a Arc Reinforcer 7.3 medium light. I like a little bit longer rod for my drop shot. Half ounce. When I'm dropping straight down on them, I want to use a half ounce cylinder weight because it gets to the bottom a lot faster. Tungsten. It's an arc tungsten. Like I said, half ounce. I probably use a, I don't know, 12 to 15 inch leader from my hook to my weight on the drop shot. When I'm dropping straight down on them, I want to use a half ounce just because it gets down there faster. I normally use a 12 inch to 15 inch leader from my hook to my weight. A 1/0 Gamakatsu drop shot hook. That's really my favorite hook to use. The 2/0 if you're going to use a little bit bigger bait, but the 1/0 is normally a very good all-around hook to use. I always use a Gamakatsu. I used a couple of different Goby style baits. You kind of just got to figure out which one the fish are in the mood with. Right here, the one I have on right here is a Zoom Z-Drop. It's in the green pumpkin color. It's kind of hard to beat that. Just a good all-around, just a Goby style bait, perch style bait, anything to mimic those type things that them smallmouth are eating. A lot of times if you can get it in front of him, he'll eat it. A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times. But again, I was just graphing around. I'd see one on my graph, he'd drop down. Sometimes he'd bite, sometimes he wouldn't. Main line, I was using a braided 16-pound braid main line from Sunline. The SX1, it's just a good all-around small diameter. I like the high-vis yellow so I can see it. I use about I'd probably say I use a 20-foot leader on my leader line. 8-pound is what I was using a lot of. There's certain situations where I'll go to 6. I don't think this was one of them where I needed that. So 8-pound sniper was my main line. I tie a double uni knot for my braid to 4.0 leader on this smaller stuff. I change my knot up a little bit when I put a leader on when I'm flipping or something, stuff like that. But the double uni is good for the real small diameter lines. Lew's Custom Pro TLC 3000 is the spinning reel I use. I just like the little bit bigger spinning reel. It has a lot of line capacity, and it's real manageable for me with the line that I put on there. You get into the 2000s. It's a smaller reel and it's a little bit lighter, but it's just the line management's not quite as good to me. That's why I like the 3000.
From Springville, Alabama, his first season on the Bassmaster Elite Series, Wes Logan. Five fish for Wes Logan here today. 18 pounds, 10 ounces, and 5 of the right ones. Finds himself inside the top 15 in 14th place. And big green ones like that are the difference maker in this tournament. 18, 10, just total, and looking for a 6'2" to take up Phoenix Boats Big Bass, no matter what it weighs. A great fish and great addition to his bag. 5 pounds, 8 ounces. And Wes, got to be happy with your start here today.
Oh yeah, especially I was here last year and I didn't do very good on this pond, so I really hope we can do that tomorrow. The good Lord bless me today, and I hope He blesses me tomorrow because we need to come check.
Always great to have you here. Look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Want to thank Honey Dipper Dan for stopping by during our weigh-in.
That's basically the rundown of my 3 baits from the Champlain tournament. Had a very good first day, not a good second day, and that's why you end up in 56. But we're rolling on to St. Clair in a couple weeks after some smallmouth again, and hopefully we can have a good finish there and get us some AOY points back. We'll see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.